Okay. Hi, everyone. It is our final Pride Month live featuring Sex Ed Bootcamp. I'll have them introduce themselves momentarily. But before we get into that, I wanted to mention that we are going to kind of start with some heavier topics today. We know what's going on in the world. I probably don't need to say it, but we will be discussing the overturn of Roe v. Wade and how that impacts all people, not just straight women with a uterus. So we'll be going into that. And then at the end, we'll hopefully get a little bit more of a positive spin on things. I know there's not much of that right now, but we can always find a little something. So before we get into that, just quick, again, content warning. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. Feel free to kind of ask anything. I mean, obviously keep things appropriate, but also if you don't feel like you need to filter yourself, we're happy to answer anything. I have the experts with me, so we will be going into all of that. I am Sarah. I am hosting tonight's live, and I am joined by Esther and Joni from Sex Ed Bootcamp. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, and then we will get into it. Go for it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joni Frater.
I'm Esther Lastique. Nice to see everyone.
And we do Sex Ed Bootcamp. And we also own lovingrite.co, our online school. So thank you, Sarah, for having us back again.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to have you back. It's unfortunately that this is the topic. We were supposed to talk about embracing your sexuality and celebrating the end of Pride Month and carrying that into the future. And maybe we'll get into that at the end. But for now, we're going to start with the serious stuff. Got my Planned Parenthood shirt on. Y'all are in your red and pink. I love it. Handmade. Sad. Pink empowerment. Love that. So we're going to get into it. So Roe v. Wade was overturned. We had a live last night with Dr. Yen and the 3% movement. Check that out. They talked a little bit about what that means in terms of reproductive rights. And we're still going to briefly touch upon that, but that's more of the medical standpoint. So if you want that, check that out. But for this evening, we're going to talk a little bit more of the sexual health side. So first question right off the bat, Roe v. Wade, obviously it is limiting access to abortion in some cases, in some states completely getting rid of it. So people still want to have sex. I think that's still perfectly healthy. So what can we do to prevent pregnancy so that an abortion doesn't need to happen in the first place?
So short of doing a complete worldwide cock block.
Yes, that too.
I think that everybody just needs to know what their options are for birth control and condoms, and to make sure that if you are not in a position or in a place where in your world right now you don't want to have a baby, you need to be doing everything possible to make sure that that doesn't happen to your body. Because nobody else is going to protect you right now. That's the very, very, very sad truth. So Pandia is a great source to get all of your birth control needs. Condoms. Withdrawal is not safe for sex. So don't think pulling out is going to keep you from getting pregnant. There's
not birth control.
It's not birth control. Semen and STDs are still in pre-cum, so you can still get pregnant. And talk to your partners. Have really honest and open conversations about the what ifs. You have to today, and have plan B and plan C on board, because you know what? I think that everybody's sexuality is going to get crushed, because just like when a man puts on a condom, they're worried about slippage, and that can actually affect their ability to get sexually aroused. Well, the possibility of getting pregnant when you really aren't prepared for that is also going to do all the bad mental hormones.
I mean, can I interject?
Sure.
I actually believe since the beginning of time, especially before the pill was like widely available, before reliable birth control methods were historically available, I feel like any opportunity that a cisgender heterosexual woman had to be sexual was always compounded with a fear of getting pregnant if she wasn't in a position to carry a child, right? And to have a family. So I feel like this is kind of like, it's in like, it might as well be a Tuesday, right? When women are just afraid of getting pregnant when they don't want to be. But the reality is that we have no safety net now. Roe was our safety net, right? Like whatever you believe personally, however you were raised to believe, and your feelings about abortion are all theoretical, and they're all like macro level, right? Like they're all like up here when you look down and you're judging other people, or you have an opinion, or you spit in, you decide to throw your hat in a ring on a political conversation. But when it's you and your body and your life, I can't tell you how many people I've known in the course of my life who were raised very conservative, very religious, aunts who were nuns. I mean, and were the first people to say, oh, I'm not going to drive someone to a clinic. But the minute they got pregnant, fast road trip. That was right. That was
It's
your
true.
plan A. So here's the where we live now. We have no safety net of Roe. So even if you were of the mind, God forbid this happens and I get pregnant, I cannot be pregnant anymore.
Yeah.
Right? There are methods. Whereas now we need to really understand that the conversation of bodily autonomy and having agency over our bodies begins and ends with us. So each one of us needs to make a dedicated, daily, conscious effort to say yes to our sexuality and say yes to claiming this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And if what you don't want is to not get pregnant, it's getting on birth control. It's whether it's putting in an IUD, going on some form of reliable hormonal birth control. If you're in a committed monogamous relationship with a cisgender man who can get you pregnant, it means talking honestly and openly about him getting a vasectomy, because that is a reversible procedure, right?
So safe and has been done for many,
right.
many years.
Right. So we know a lot of young couples who are like, we have 2 or 3 kids, we're not going to have any more, and next one's leaving in a box, right? Like, so
guess what? My dad had a vasectomy.
Oh my God, so many years ago.
Long time ago, because 2 were plenty for my family. Mm-hmm. And they were smart enough to realize, and my mom had been on birth control, and she had some problems with the hormones, and understandably so. After a long time, you want to think about these things. So my father actually came up to the plate and said, you know what? It's awesome. I'm going to go get a vasectomy.
Yeah.
It was the responsible thing to do.
It is. It's like, I like to think of a vasectomy, different context, but it's like an IUD, right? Like the IUD, you have it in for a bunch of years and then you take it out and it's great. And then you can literally get pregnant pretty quickly afterwards. And same with the vasectomy. So it's like, why are we telling women they have to be on birth control or in order to protect themselves when like guys aren't accountable?
And here's the really scary part, right? Think about, everybody looks at us funny when we say things like, oh my God, this is The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the patriarchy is alive and well in 2022. And people are like, what? I don't understand. I'm like, okay, well, let me paint you a picture. If this was really about controlling pregnancy and it wasn't just about controlling women's bodies, why don't we ask young men to automatically get a vasectomy once they're producing semen until they're ready to be fathers?
Yeah.
Right? Why don't we actually suggest to young women the minute we start menstruating, let's talk about birth control, right? Remember there was a huge scandal that was created when the vaccine for HPV came out and doctors had to start talking to their patients, to their parents, their patients being the children, when pediatricians had to start talking about a sexually transmitted disease. Oh no, heavens to Betsy, we can't talk about that.
Not my 11-year-old kid.
Right, 9 to 11 years old, right? But that's the point. We need to start looking at sexuality and sex education and managing body care from a very young age, right? Consent starts when you're small. It doesn't start when you are old enough to have breasts and have somebody touch you inappropriately, right?
And what if sex education was normal and talked about from the time we were really, really young, like they do in Switzerland and Finland and other Netherlands and other countries that have far fewer problems than we have, because they make things normal. Everything is normalized there. Sexual activity is normalized. Even drinking is normalized because they've learned how to be responsible for their bodies, for their drinking, for their everything. We just fly by the seat of our pants and we're not given those tools, which is kind of sad.
And sadly, in many segments of our global, our national community, we have parts of our demographic that just don't want to have a conversation, right? Yeah. So you don't want to talk about sex, don't want to talk about gender identity, you don't want to talk about orientation, you don't want to talk about preventing pregnancy, you don't want to talk about, you name it. We can go out to gun violence, we can go out to, every other ism that is out there. If you don't want to talk about it and you're going to turn a blind eye, what are you going to talk about at the dinner table? Right? You're going to talk about football. You're going to talk about you're going to talk about basketball. You're going to go la 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 la. I'm not listening to you when the news is on and your kids are like, "What? WTF? What's happening?"
Yeah.
Like, why? This is the first time in 50 years that the generations that are coming after us have less rights than we do. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. That's trying to take that all in. Like, yeah,
overwhelmed at the whole conversation, right?
So, yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the other thing that's really entertaining right now is that regardless of age, regardless of demographic, everybody we talk to, particularly women, particularly people in the LGBTQ community, and particularly women of color, are freaking out. And basically, we're all walking around like, I'm just really freaking angry right now. Like everybody's just got their hair on fire. And figuring out a way to take that energy, that frustration, that despair, and channeling it into a positive format, right? And how can we utilize this anger and this frustration into something that is actionable right now? And what does that look like? And that to me is the biggest question, because everyone is so angry and everyone is just so frustrated and feeling powerless. And I feel like that is the scariest moment for all of us, is that we feel like we just have no power to make this better right now.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think also so many people are burnt out. I was unable to go to the Supreme Court this weekend. I'm in Washington, D.C., but my sister was there and she was saying that like people just needed to yell and get angry. And so it almost felt like that protest was more of just kind of like that like cleanse of everything. And that's totally fair. I mean, I think that's, people need to experience that right now. And it's like, okay, that's a great first step. But then it's like, okay, what can we do after that? And Chris, shout out to you, left a comment saying that they live in a liberal part of California. And what can they do as a 56-year-old to help with these issues? They already donate, protest, and educate others, and they feel lost. Totally fair. Shout out to Dr. Yen. She answered this really great. Volunteering, phone banking, for campaigns for pro-choice Democratic candidates, like Whitmer in Michigan and Warnock in Georgia. Anyone on Emily's list? Oh yeah, check Emily's list out. That's a great resource. I mean, those are all great things. And I think just starting the conversation, and then in terms of like having your own bodily autonomy, and this is just talking about like right now, unfortunately, like we don't know what's going to happen literally tomorrow, but right now, say you wanted to have sex right now, I would say like double up on contraception. So wearing a condom, and the benefit of that too is that external barrier. So that's also protecting you against STIs, something that we'll probably do another live on, but, and then your hormonal or non-hormonal, whatever other contraception you're on. So birth control, pill, patch, ring, IUD. There's also the copper IUD if you want to go non-hormonal. All of those options. You're doubling up. Your risk of pregnancy is like none. Like, and so
Can I jump in for 1 second, Sarah? I just want to make sure to clarify one detail. That doesn't mean double up on condoms.
Yes, that is a good point.
And condom. Some people used to think that it was better to use 2 condoms, that it would protect you, but it doesn't. The friction makes them break. So 1 condom used properly with a little drop of lube in it, and other birth control. Now you've got double the protection.
There's also the female condom, which is another really great opportunity, right? Internal condoms are great. And they're really awesome for couples too. So if you are a heterosexual cisgender couple and you don't like the idea of using a barrier, but you really don't want to get pregnant, and for whatever reason you're taking hormonal birth control, or you're also it would like an additional protection, the internal condoms are awesome, because remember, when you're using an external condom and a male partner climaxes and pulls out, they have to pull out right away. You have to clean up right away, right? Make sure there's no fluids that are transmitted. Whereas with a female condom, your partner gets to stay inside. You guys can be more intimate. And then cuddle. Whenever you're done, you pull out. It's simple. You just twist it, pull it out, wrap it in a paper towel, throw it in the garbage. Don't flush any of your safer sex products.
And all safer sex products are only one use, single use. So if you want to go again, you need a new condom or an external or internal condom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to change from front hole to back hole, whatever you're doing.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Condoms, yes. Check out One Condoms. Great options. 60 different sizes. Like, who knew there were even that many options? But literally no excuse to say a condom doesn't fit when you have 60 different options. So check them out. They're really great. And then lubricants. One that I like is Good Clean Love. You can get that at the pharmacy. It's so good. It's water-based lube is typically recommended. It doesn't stain your sheets, so that's nice. And it also, again, with like that friction, it's just a better thing. And also, it's typically more better for sensitive skin. So
I was just gonna say that, and if you have a sensitive pH, like some women get UTIs really often, or get yeast infections really often. BV, right. So if you have any kind of issues that definitely are, indicative of a different level of pH and your body's really sensitive, then water-based lube is going to be best for you as well. And Good Clean Love is an organic water-based lube. It's the only one that's also condom friendly. So we're big fans. So,
and they also now make Genital washes, which are wonderful products.
Oh,
So,
so
if
awesome.
you have very sensitive skin, they make a wonderful line of products now. It's really
Yeah.
more than just lube.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I'll have to check that out. So moving on, similar
Mhm.
topic, but I want to talk about having the conversation with your partner. So I think at this point, like consent was already challenging for people, and now it's like you kind of have to consent even more. So how do you kind of navigate this conversation with a new partner? I'm speaking specifically, I guess, in heterosexual relationships where someone can't get pregnant. I mean, consent applies in all relationships, but specifically adding the component of like the pregnancy prevention to the conversation about consent. Do you have any tips for that?
This is probably one of
Loaded
the
question.
diciest- yeah, this is going
Yeah.
to be the hardest conversation you're ever going to have
Yeah.
because it's going to cross barriers that are religious, that are sometimes very difficult to have conversations about. But you need to ask your partner today, what would happen if we got pregnant and it was unplanned and we can't do that? Or I can't do that. I'm not in the place to do that.
And now, we live in a state where you have to literally get on an airplane or drive 3 days to
another
access
state.
healthcare. So if you want to terminate, so that becomes a major expense. That becomes a time expense. I mean, if there are other people or children involved, right? Work, school. So this becomes a real life altering conversation. It's not like oh, oops, guess what? We're pregnant. Yeah, guess what? The luxury, and honestly, I can't believe we even like refer to it as a luxury at this point, but the luxury of having had the safety net of Roe, having been yanked out from under us. I have to tell you, I had a hot flash this afternoon and I was so grateful that I had a hot flash that I don't have to worry about ever getting knocked up. I mean, we're a couple, we're together almost 20 years. So I'm not getting pregnant by accident, but even 20 years ago. But honestly, the realities of being a heterosexual cisgender woman right now and being in the dating scene, you have my whole heart just beats for you. It is terrifying to me.
Because how do you ask somebody, how do you feel about a situation when they don't know until they're in the situation? And that's the really hard part. If you have never been down that path and had to make a decision, what do we do? Then you might say one answer today, but then in the moment, it could be a different situation.
Yeah.
So it's really, you have to be very open and honest with your partner and say, you know what, financially, can we handle this? Time wise, do we have enough support system around us that if we had a baby who could help us take care of this child? What's going to happen with work, your work, my work, school, my goals, your life, your money?
Yeah.
How are we going to, provide for this child?
If you have a life plan and having sex with a new person gets in the way of your life plan, you're not going to have sex with that person, right? That's the answer. I hate to be so black and white about it, but the reality is that that's how bad things are now. I have to tell you, I really feel like we have to record June 24th as the day that the libido of the American heterosexual women died.
It's true.
It's true. I mean, I don't know how any straight girls are going to get turned on from here on out. I really don't. That to me is the big secret question.
I mean, like, I don't know.
Right.
It's really scary. I mean, I can see this affecting so many people. And I mean, I know people have different views, but at the same time, it's like, until it happens to you, I think sometimes like it's really hard to conceptualize it, but this could literally happen to anyone. That's the thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think people need to recognize that, because even if you aren't in a heterosexual relationship, if you're sexually assaulted, just any things like that. But also, I do want to point out, because I feel like a lot of people are talking about like the dire situations in which you need an abortion. I listened to a really great podcast today with a doctor named Mira Shaw, and she was saying how like abortion's just like a basic healthcare right. You shouldn't need like a dire situation in order to have one, because accidents happen and people have ectopic pregnancies, people have PCOS where they have complications down the line, and it's like if you have to choose in that situation. There was one woman who she mentioned in the podcast who had a blood clot as a result of the pregnancy, and was able to get an abortion, but like now is in a state where it's like she would have had to like drive a couple hours, like, and who can do that in that state, like,
and not throw a clot, right? And not put her life in danger.
Yeah.
To spend 2 hours in the car.
She
to
could
go get
have
that
a
procedure.
stroke on the way.
Right.
To getting that taken care of.
Yeah. and it's just ridiculous. There's another story trending online. You might have seen it, that was saying there was a woman who she had an ectopic pregnancy, and she was in a state where the trigger ban went into effect right away on June 24th, and she had to wait in the doctor's office, basically while the doctor was talking to a lawyer if they were going to lose their medical license, which, like, fair. I mean,
fair. Yeah, consult with the attorney. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Right. Like, fair. Totally get it. And like, by the time, I mean, the woman ended up surviving, but by the time they were able to do the procedure, she had so much blood in her stomach from that. Like, it's just crazy. And it's just, again, like, this could happen to anyone. And even if you're not in a heterosexual relationship, like, this could happen to a parent, this could happen to a sibling, or just anyone. And that's why it's so important to talk about these things and let people know that, like, you know, even if you are a guy, like, this could happen to someone. Like, it's just, it affects everyone. It really does.
Miscarriages happen so frequently. It's like 1 in 3 pregnancies, I think.
It's so common.
And with Roe v. Wade going away, now there's going to be a question as to whether or not there's going to be some legal ramification,
some criminalization of that.
A criminalization of having a miscarriage.
Yeah,
you didn't ask for that.
And to go to jail for doing something that is going to save your life.
Right.
But people don't get arrested for shooting up a school. Like,
right. Yeah.
I mean,
what's happening?
Not to bring that conversation in.
You can get a gun anywhere, but you can't get an abortion. And who's pro-life?
And wait, and in the same states that it's easy to buy a gun, you have a lot of trouble getting somebody to sell you Plan B.
Yeah.
So
that's
let's really talk about the value of life, right? Like, so
and whose life?
Right.
The people with the uterus, are down here.
Yeah.
Everybody else is, if you're white cisgender male, you're up here.
Yeah.
We've lost the whole floor, and the people of color are even further down. And that's who's going to really pay the price for all of this, and unfortunately always does.
Yeah.
And it's going to devastate communities. If there are multiple unplanned pregnancies in communities, who's going to take care of these children? We have no child care.
And we have
we got no health care benefits for babies.
And the whole stupidity around, just give it up for adoption. Somebody reposted this thing that's going all over Facebook. That's basically like having a conversation with a conservative person who says, no, they should really give up child for adoption. Oh, okay. Well, then what if the law said, because there are so many babies now available for adoption, that everyone who basically has children or is of child rearing age has to take in foster children.
Right.
So, and then the woman was like, oh, no, I can't possibly do that. Like, I have enough children. No, thanks. And
right.
Like, this isn't a choice, Blanche. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So I feel like the biggest conversation that we have to start having now is taking a beat and really sitting down with yourself and asking those hard questions. Like, what's my path? What's my future? What do I want my future to look like in the next 5 years?
Or even start smaller. What's it look like in 1 year?
Right.
In 3 years and in 5 years, because depending on where you are in your life, maybe 1 year looks long and far to you, and that's okay.
Right.
But I want you to stay on your path. And if your path is not having an unplanned pregnancy, then with all the love in my heart, I want everybody listening to go out, talk to their medical providers about some level of birth control. And make sure that you protect your body as much as you can in the meantime, and know what your options are if something happened that went wrong.
And I think it's also really important to talk about with your, the first conversation person you have this conversation with is yourself, is what are your boundaries?
Yeah.
What brings you pleasure? What makes you feel good? What kind of acts are you interested in doing with any one particular person and with a specific person, right? That you want to have sex with? And what is that going to look like? Like, get as detailed as you want, because guess what? After you have that conversation with yourself, you get to have it with that person, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that they are on board for everything you want and everything you don't.
And if they're not comfortable having the conversation, that's a big red flag.
Mm-hmm. Sirens going off in your head.
On the bright side, this kind of weeds people out. So
amen, sister. Yeah, it totally does. Yeah.
And quite frankly, and that's a great way that's a litmus test, man. You know what?
Really.
You're staying to play or you're not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And we're either going to play the same way or bye.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Yen, so funny. I was literally just going to say this because I remember she mentioned it on the last live, that the states with the most restrictive abortion laws are also the states that are least likely to support low-income families and single moms. So it's just like, that's why it's like, this is truly the war on people with uteri, but also like lower income women of color, just to keep putting us down. And it's really scary.
I mean, and to do this with no restrictions,
Yeah.
no exceptions for rape or incest, shows you how little value they've placed on our lives.
Yeah.
And that is just so sad for me to have to look at any young person now and go, you know what? My dog has more rights than you do. A prisoner has more rights than you do.
Yeah. And that's like not okay.
No,
And
that's messed up.
It's beyond that okay, right?
That's
And
really messed up.
I feel like the other thing that needs to, that moving forward, taking this anger and this energy, and what do we do with it? Another great thing to talk about is understanding that knowledge is power, and understanding that community is power. So sharing these stories, having these kind of open and honest dialogues, not just with us on live, but also in your communities, with your friends, in your sphere of influence,
with
in
your
families,
elders.
with your elders, in your church, in your social groups. We need to start making it normal and healthy to talk about your expectations in relationships, your expectations for sex, what that looks like, what healthy sexuality actually even is and might mean to you individually, personally, and how do you create that for yourself, right, with your partners? And how do we do that moving forward and making it normal and like it is so necessary for us to start talking about what does it really mean to have agency over my body? What does it really mean? Start now. Start talking to your kids younger than you would have originally about sex and sexuality.
And don't make them hug people that they don't want to
Yeah,
hug.
exactly.
You know, let them have, you know, their own body autonomy. Yeah. If they don't feel comfortable with somebody, maybe there's a reason, and that's okay.
Yeah. And maybe they're just going through a growth phase where they're just like, you know what, I'm just not into it. Like, it just doesn't work for me. And
that's okay.
It has to be okay, right? But because if we're going to teach them when they get older that they can say no, we need to let them say no now.
Right.
I mean, and for adults that are sexually active, you know, you don't have to have intercourse all the time.
That's right.
I just want to mention that.
You can do that are not going to get you pregnant. You can have mutual masturbation, so you can have a show and tell session and learn a lot more about each other's sexuality while you're doing it.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot.
So why not, you know, explore your sexuality in ways that don't involve a penis and a vagina.
Yeah, I was going to say too, also anybody out there, particularly, you know, cisgender women, if you are concerned, and people with uteri, if you're concerned about the possibility of getting pregnant, consider experimenting with partners of the same gender, because honestly, you're not going to get pregnant. So
there
are some benefits.
Sex toys.
Yeah, sex toys, right? I mean,
sex toys.
Your sexuality is a beautiful, diverse, amazing thing. And it, you know, how you embrace your sexuality is going to be different than how the next person you talk to is going to embrace your sexuality.
And I think in this age of stress, we need to do a whole lot more foreplay to get our brain chemistry into a place where we can even allow ourselves to feel sexually turned on with all the rage that's going through our bodies and all the fear that's on the other side of what if, which
is producing horrible brain chemistry, right? For all of us, we're stressed out. Cortisol is running our lives, right?
So masturbate a little more.
Masturbation, I swear, I think at this moment, masturbation is the answer.
It's the answer to everything, honestly. There's so many benefits to it. We could do a whole live on it.
We could do a whole live on it, for sure.
I think going forward too, like previously, especially when I was in college and I was surrounded by a lot of like women my age, there's a conversation about like, oh, have your hoe phase and like feel empowered to have sex and whatever. And I don't disagree with that, but I do think now you do need to have more consideration. Not that you didn't need to have that in the past, but like now you really do. And as you're talking about, you need that plan. And then that way, when you are in a situation where you're like maybe a little drunk or like you do feel like hooking up with that person, you have that plan in your brain. And it's like, okay, here's like my kind of like backup plan. If you're feeling turned on, maybe you have your sex toy, or like, okay, maybe I'll go home with this person, but we aren't going to do anything like penetrative. We'll just do the mutual masturbation, or you can do other things. Obviously make sure they're clean of STIs, another conversation. And get tested yourself. Yes. So this brings us to our last topic, and we've touched upon it a little bit, but I think this will be a really good closer. What does the future look like in terms of sexuality? Just like, I don't know, reproductive rights, things like that. What does the future look like? And then what, again, kind of to bring it home, what can we do to make it the best for ourselves? I don't know if that makes sense, but
well,
I know it's a tough one.
We really don't know what the future is going to hold, because unfortunately the line of topics that go after Roe v. Wade falls,
there's so many,
goes down a very dark path that it could take away sodomy laws, could take away interracial marriage. I mean, if you take away the entire 14th Amendment, nobody's ever having sex again.
Yeah, that's for sure.
At least not, unless you're cisgender and that's that, and you're looking to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I think that the real answer is for people to claim their own sense of sexuality and don't let anybody take it away. You know what? We fought damn hard for these rights. We've had these conversations for the last 50 years plus. And I don't want these conversations to go away just because they took away a right temporarily. And we can regain this, possibly. It's going to take a lot of work politically.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, we need to do a lot of groundwork and a lot of inner work. I think we need to really, talk about, why is this happening? In Judaism, the mother's life is actually preferred over the life of the fetus. So if there was a fetus that was going to be harmed, the mother's life is saved.
Yes.
That's not what this law is about.
Right.
So that's I hate to point fingers, but it's a Christian thing.
Yeah.
And we have to ask
separation of church and state, question mark.
And
question mark.
Whatever happened to that? And
yeah.
whose Christian beliefs are we really representing when they do this?
Right.
Well, and the reality is that I'm trying to figure out a positive spin. So let's look at it this way. We must be so powerful as women, right? Think about it. We must be so powerful that they have exerted this level of backlash, this level of just histrionic response to literally telling us that we're not going to be able to have control over our own bodies.
It's just prejudice.
Like, wow, how afraid of us must they be? Well, maybe we should look them in the face and say, damn right, you should be
very afraid.
Damn right. Be very afraid. Because you know what, my friends? November is coming. Winter is coming and election day is coming. So in the meantime, as we are focusing on education, the other thing we focus on is registering everyone you know to vote. Everyone who's turning 18 before November. Everybody needs to care. Everybody needs to know that this issue, this is not about a right to abortion. This is about a right to privacy. This is about a right to control your own body, for you to be able to make decisions over how your body responds and reacts, right? So if you're going to have an allergic reaction, you're not going to go to a hospital and the hospital's going to say, I'm sorry, I can't give you medicine for your allergic reaction. I'm going to watch you suffocate. That's like saying I'm going to the hospital because I'm going to kill myself, or I threw myself down a flight of stairs because I wanted to end this pregnancy. Right. Well, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Really? So there's some very scary possibilities in our future. So the reality becomes, how do we take this frustration and anger and turn it into something positive?
Yeah.
And we also need to make sure that we hold in our hearts very carefully all the people that have been survivors of rape and incest and are being triggered by this whole conversation.
Yeah.
That this is just so hard to watch and to think about other people having to suffer again for other people's hypocrisy and narrow-mindedness at a time. I mean, here we are at a time in history where we're watching the world fall apart everywhere. And they decided to give us this much in gun legislation and take away all of our rights.
Yeah.
Where did they make sense at? What's the end game? I'm trying to just figure out what is the logical reason for this to happen.
There's no logic.
I know there is no logic.
Yeah, there doesn't seem like there is.
So I feel like the other thing I just want to mention is that while all of us, I'm sure most of us listening tonight, I probably identify as female or LGBTQ, but I want to put a shout out there to the element of our population that are cisgender heterosexual men. Because honestly, boys, gentlemen, we need you, because
you're our new allies.
This is it. This is like, if you guys ever want to get laid again, I'm not kidding. Like, this is not, I'm not being facetious about it, right? I mean, this is really about, we've met in the 12 years we've talked to college students about sex and sex ed. We have met so many awesome young heterosexual guys who have been like, I want my girlfriend to want sex more often. I want her to enjoy it as much as me. I want for her to want to be sexual. And when you start asking, why do you feel that she feels that way? Their answers kind of reflect, I don't take care of her the way I want her to take care of me, right? So her pleasure is not primary. Oh, and she's really worried about getting pregnant. Ding, 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 right? Like, so let's remove that fear so it sets us all free to explore our sexuality, to enjoy it, to have fun, to feel good, to revel in it. Because nothing is going to piss off the patriarchy more than embracing your sexuality.
Yes, very true.
That to me on a daily basis is a great way to stick it to them. So
Yes.
but doing that safely.
And be
right?
loud and proud about it.
That's right.
Be
Men
loud
and
and
men
proud
too.
about
Be
it.
loud and proud about you being pro-choice and being pro-woman. There,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I will tell you
Wow.
about a couple of years ago. There's a great comedian. If you've never watched her show, her name is Samantha Bee. She's on TBS. She does a
Oh,
really
she's great.
hilarious political show, Full Frontal, right? But she said, you know what, guys out there, fuck like a feminist, like you love women. And if you love women, you're going to wear a condom, you're going to make sure birth control's in place, and you're going to make sure her pleasure comes first because girls are multi-orgasmic. So guess what? This is really the time. Explore your sexuality, figure out how your body works, figure out how to share that information with a willing participant, and make sure you have all of your plans in place to stay just as healthy after sex as you were before sex.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's a whole process. It's the before, the planning and preparation, the during, and then the after. I mean, it all ties in, but I really like that spin that you put on it, that yes, like a feminist, very important. And yeah, because otherwise, like, I mean, women are just gonna like boycott these guys, like, there's, you know, that vetting process. So yeah, and like, don't lie about it, like genuinely educate yourself and be genuine about it. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with being pro-choice. I mean, at this point, it's kind of pro-choice and anti-choice. Like,
yeah,
I mean, because pro-life, I mean, you're
kind of pro-choice and anti-woman at this point.
Yes.
I hate to say it like that, but that's kind of how it comes out.
No, that's how it feels. But I really like how you put that positive spin on it. So that is all the topics I have for this evening, but I wanted to close out final takeaways on my end, and then I'll have you do that. And first of all, thank you so much. We did the 3 lives this month. We'll definitely have you back. And I really appreciate this. Unfortunately, we kind of had to take a turn. We would have had some happier topics, but it's okay. We got the future for that. We put a positive spin on it. So yeah, before we close out, a couple reminders. Check out pandiahealth.com. Get your birth control under control. One great way to maintain your body autonomy. I mean, again, things could change, but for now, we deliver to all 50 states. We prescribe to, I believe, like 14. So if you don't have a prescription, you can get a consultation with one of our doctors. Otherwise, schedule a consultation with your own doctor, but you can have your birth control still delivered through Pandia Health. So I do that. And it's super convenient, really great. You get gifts in the baskets because, you know, at this point, you got to do something to make your life a little easier. And it's like, you know, you're being responsible by taking birth control. That said, if you are unable to take birth control for health reasons, totally understandable. Make sure you're using condoms, other methods, and not the pull-out method. And stock up on emergency contraception again while you still can. You can have Ella prescribed to you. That is more effective because it works for all people, especially those with a higher BMI. And you can take it, I think, a couple more days after. Plan B is a little bit less effective. It's only 3 days after and lower BMI. So keep a stock of that. Again, you can get it prescribed with insurance. I think it should be free. And
by the way, have you heard that Plan B is actually, they're restricting how much you can buy now?
I did.
Yeah.
Sad.
So definitely get a prescription for Ella.
So get a prescription, yes, and get that delivered. You can get that delivered with Pandia as well. So check that out. Check us out on social media. We'll continue to post about this. I mean, we're not going to stop until the fight for women is over, which will it ever be? I don't know. But
we're just going to pass the baton to the next generation.
We're going to keep screaming until then.
Yeah. Until then. So that's it on our end. Anything y'all want to plug?
No, you can visit our online school at lovingrght.co. If you can take any of our classes for the summer for free, the code is ROE, R-O-E, in honor of our fallen hero. So we wish you guys a wonderful, safe, sexy future, and we're here.
Yeah.
If you need us.
And own your body, love your body, take good care of your body. It's yours. You know, you don't get another choice here. So
that's true.
Be good to yourself and love yourself, even despite all the madness. Don't let the bastards get you down. That's
mic drop. There you go. I got nothing better to say. Well, thank you guys so much. And thank you to everyone who's been checking us out. Really appreciate you. Feel free to keep leaving comments, all that good stuff, and sharing our videos to anyone who might benefit. And we will see you next time. So thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.